We've come a long way from "you'll believe a man can fly," but that doesn't mean superhero filmmaking is a walk in the park. For the screenwriter, there's no problem that doesn't have a solution. Perhaps an easy one. One that doesn't cause much of an inconvenience, perhaps.
Don't be ridiculous.
They don't have to film the things they write, though. In 1978, it was enough to make a man fly. But the 21st century superhero movie has 21st century effects, 21st century fight choreography, and an audience looking for their comic books to come to life.
Perfect timing.
Sometimes that takes some doing.
Perhaps someday you could give me a history lesson.
Remember when we thought nothing could top Avengers Endgame? It had 36 named characters across 20 movies, all duking it out in one massive battle scene that had so many OMG moments that you'd have to watch it at quarter speed just to catch everything. That's right, I see you, Howard the Duck. So how can you top that? By pulling in characters and actors from previous franchises, that's how. That included bringing back the always intense Willem Dafoe as signature spider-hater Green Goblin. Tom Holland has talked about Dafoe's intensity and his seemingly bottomless well of choices, even remarking that they did 50 takes of a scene just to see if he'd run out. He did not. Dafoe's intensity inspired the same from his co-stars, specifically in that emotional final climactic showdown. The sequence took days to film, and after the final exchange was finished, Holland said that they both collapsed, exhausted, with Holland's knuckles bleeding. Shang-Chi had a lot of set pieces, but the one that gets the ball rolling is the fight on the Munibus. It was pretty action-packed, and Liu was game to be as involved as possible, including sliding across the roof, swinging off the mirror, and kicking through the door to get back into the Rumble Bus. He brought his discipline and desire for perfection, so he tried the take several times, eventually injuring his knee, which swelled up after filming. And that's just one part. The choreography was inspired by Zui Quan, most associated with Jackie Chan, which involves a lot of use of environment in the choreography. That's only the beginning. They had to make the fight look like it was taking place on an articulated bus barreling past the Dragon Gate to Chinatown and California Street. That meant a full-size Munibus on a mechanical gimbal apparatus and then married to the actual San Francisco streets, where someone is going to be very upset about what happened to their BMW i8. The Super Spy contingent of Avengers were last in line for their solo outings, and both of them had to share it with the one who was meant to take their place. Neither of them went quietly. For Barton, he was forced to chase the ghosts of his time during the blip where he got, a little revengey. Unfortunately, that managed to unravel an even more complicated situation that brought Echo and the Tracksuit Mafia in, as well as the return of Kingpin. My Christmas wish came true. Anyway, having an all-skate finale wasn't enough, though. They had to have their all-skate on one of the most iconic Christmas locations in the world, Rockefeller Center, including its 50-foot Christmas tree and ice skating rink. Bonus points, they brought the tree down in the fight because this is a superhero fight. And that's not all. There were also 2 trick archers firing trick arrows everywhere, and did those guys in the van get eaten by an owl? Yikes. Filming at one of the biggest Christmas destinations would have been hard enough, but bringing the tree down meant they had to take an extra step, building a life-size replica of Rockefeller Center, tree and all, in Atlanta, even going so far as to match the granite aging of the original location. In an example of never believe production when they say they're done with a prop or location, the giant tree had been tossed out before they realized they needed reshoots that involved Barton in the tree. So they had to fish the now dead tree out of the studio lot bin and put it back up. The slow reveal that the hero at the center of WandaVision was actually the bad guy, and it was a matter of how you talk down one of the most powerful people on Earth, was a remarkable start for the MCU on Disney+. You'd think that the biggest challenge would be the not one but 2 sky battles, but newcomers to the Marvel special effects pipeline Mars, or Monsters, Aliens, Robots, Zombies, that about covers everyone but wizards, beg to differ. Their assignment was Vision's flyover of Westview during Halloween. Vision had to transition from Halloween costume Vision to MCU Vision and then fly over a town that didn't exist. That is, until Mars created all that in computers and then merged it with practical footage, which is to say, Paul Bettany's face. The mind-bending didn't stop at Westview. It turns out that the multiverse is a real thing, and it was being groomed by a supervillain to keep a cap on more hymns. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, those universes all contain a Loki, and Lokis are known for two things: messing with things and being extraordinarily hard to kill and have it take. The solution was to shuffle them off to the Void, where the Lokis could duke it out for top Loki. The Void was also the place where all the things that didn't fit in He Who Remains' plans went. Episode 5, which saw the collision of the Lokis, had 527 effects shot that included a messed up New York from ILM's archives, a battleship, and the Lighthouse of Alexandria. It even had Throg, which is Frog Thor, obviously, and the Thanos copter. And that's before you get to Alioth, the giant smoke monster that clears the Void. An Alioth that would eventually try and eat an imaginary Asgard. One of the most common conventions of the superhero movie that's emerged is the sky beam and the swirling vortex of rubble. There have been efforts to mix it up, like Doctor Strange having his go backwards. For Black Widow, they got rid of the sky beam and just had the Skyborn Red Room fall to pieces in the sky. Not that all that kaboom stopped anyone from fighting each other on the way down. No one was willing to let the ground do all the work, no matter how fast it was coming up. The sequence took the combined efforts of effects legends Industrial Lights and Magic and Digital Domain, as well as the stunt teams that choreographed all the kicking and punching and bouncing around all that falling debris. You know it's a complicated shot when you need ILM and Digital Domain. Bringing everything together with matching lighting and elements proved to be the biggest challenge. Now, not all challenges are about computers and rendering. Comedian Kumail Nanjiani joined the all-star cast of The Eternals as Marvel's first South Asian superhero. Even though director Chloe Zhao told him that it wasn't necessary, he didn't want to be the first pudgy one. Getting swole wasn't the hardest part of his journey. Instead, it was depicting his character Kingo's day job, Bollywood star. Bollywood is India's film industry and twice the size of Hollywood. And their films are known for their elaborate song and dance numbers. The prospect of having to do an elaborate dance number was enough to make Nanjiani say he wasn't right for the role, so Zhao said that she'd make it an action sequence. Only she didn't. Nanjiani then worked tirelessly with his dance instructor, Nalika. As is probably clear by now, putting stunts, practical effects, and digital effects all together in the same sequence is a tricky endeavor. That is especially true when you're filming a chase sequence through a crazy no-way world like the Mirror Dimension in Doctor Strange. Effects companies looked for fractal references far and wide, from the mobile game Monument Valley to YouTube and Vimeo, where effects artists were experimenting with different elements and physics. At the gooey center of the madness were the actual actors, including the Stan Lee cameo where they built a bus side for Mordo and Strange to slam into without the effects. The beginning, before the world went full MC Escher, proved to be a big challenge, with Strange running into the intersection with the camera on a cherry picker 130 feet in the air. In order to go all the way from up there to down on Strange, they had to stitch together 3 different cameras, including one on a crane halfway down at 75 feet. Endgame had all the stars in it, which can cause some of filmmaking's biggest hurdles. But it wasn't the A-list talent that caused the biggest scheduling headache. When Tony Stark turns down the time heist, they go to the next big brain they know in Professor Hulk, something Scott Lang had never seen. He also found out that Ant-Man wasn't exactly a household name yet.
Do you want to grab one with me? I'm Ant-Man.
Now those weren't ordinary kids, they were the children of the Russo brothers and sister. But to get the kids on set took some shuffling because the kids' school schedule had to be worked around. Anthony Russo told Cleveland.com that scheduling that was harder than scheduling the shot that had all the Avengers in it, save one. The roguish Guardians of the Galaxy became a big hit for the MCU, and a sign that they didn't have to rely on well-known titles to keep the hits coming. Alright, having James Gunn direct didn't hurt. The charm offensive continued in the second chapter, where a new Groot was being grown from a twig of the previous Groot. This sets the stage for a toddler Groot to get his ELO on while the Guardians did their work, fighting a battery-eating space monster with impenetrable skin. The catch, of course, is that Groot is digital. This meant having a focus on a thing that's not there while coordinating the action that happens out of focus on the full set in the background and then interacting with it. Then, with all that done, the digital effects team had to add the dancing sapling and fill in the rest of the platform. Oh, I'd totally take the paid superhero physical training. There's no way I'm doing all of that on my own. Burritos are delicious. Everything should come in burrito form. That is not the life philosophy of a buff superhero with tasty abs. I have burrito abs. And I'm kinda out of breath from doing this voiceover.